Everybody unmute. Cassandra's out there. Oh, you're like Cassandra Clark, you're eating dinner. That's all right.
Yeah, I forgot it was dinner time.
That's okay. That's okay. All right, I'll try hopefully to make this short and sweet. I'll call the meeting to order. I did text Jack as well. So call the meeting to order at 6:31. Bylaw Committee, April 1, 2024. Roll call, alphabetical roll call, please.
Clark Brewer here. But Tom, can you talk into your mic?
Yeah, Tom Callahan here.
Michael Dickey here.
David Farag here.
Okay, and hopefully Jack will join us, maybe not. All right, as you saw from my memo, at the judge's suggestion, everything's been separated out into its own article. That will make it easier for us to deal with any amendments or anything. And it actually takes away having to compile at the meeting the new tables for either Article 4 or Article 5. We are making the changes, and then those changes will get done by ourselves and the Cohasset 360 people. So I'm going to share screen, and you saw all the appendices, all the little things we're going to show people, and the trial run is with the with the planning board. By the way, the planning board meeting I thought was going to be at 6:30. It's actually going to be at 7. So hopefully we can get through everything in one night, but we'll see what happens.
Is that going to be live or?
Yeah, we're going to be at Wilcott Common. It's going to be live in Zoom, so it's going to be like a select board meeting. So I would prefer that the planning board members and you as a member of this committee be there live if you can. So
Tom, you're planning to do something for the ZBA as well, right?
haven't scheduled anything yet.
Okay,
Right.
I know Woody's,
All right, well,
very eager to,
yeah, I think I copied him on the email over the weekend with this final lineup. So if either you or me will reach out to him and schedule me whenever it's convenient for you guys. You guys meet on a Tuesday, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Jack just responded. He can't make it.
Okay. He would have helped with one explanation of the one substantive thing we need to talk to about tonight, but that's all right. I was there, so I can.
Well, read the text.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm not going to say what it is on a recorded meeting.
What's that? Oh, you mean his text?
Yeah, I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah. I know. I'm seeing it now. Okay. All right. So again, with them all split out and set up, number one is the reorganization of the text, and the appendix shows how everything will look after that. Then the consolidation of the districts will now be separate votes. So the 3A is first, Harbor is second, and then the only thing I've highlighted in the Harbor is the Legion property, whether we include it or not. The Legion property is still Residence B, but the Region lot property was put into the HVBOD. It is a commercial use. I thought it would well, I can't say that. It would make it conforming use to put it in a business district. So it's optional. We could leave that to see how the planning board feels about it.
Well, right now it's a DB, right?
No, right now, the Legion is RB, yet it's in the overlay district at the same time. The overlay district consisted of the DB properties that were on the land side of Elm Street and the Legion. So it's a little weird how it did that, but
sure?
yeah, I checked it when I was putting all this together. I had Cassandra give me the article that passed, that created the overlay district in 2017 or 18. And
it's a town-owned district. But it's hard to tell. It's got the hatch on it in the enlarged plan.
Yeah, but I think the article back when it passed, it mentioned the parcel numbers, and so I'm pretty sure it's in there.
It's in the overlay.
Yeah.
And it's a town-owned lot.
Well,
the town-owned property.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell because it looks like, yeah, it looks like the underlying district is
Well, clearly for the
R-
Legion, yeah, clearly for
RB.
the Legion, it's RB. So it's not a major
I-
thing. We can see how the planning board
I,
feels
I
about.
w- I would, my 2 cents on it is, and I know it might confuse people, is since we're going through this whole exercise of redoing the zoning, is to make that a conforming use,
Correct.
and to bring it in to be a conforming use. And I realize it'll confuse people. People say, "What does this mean?" But I think for it, for its health and longevity, it only helps extend that by creating it as a conforming use and not just as a non-conforming one that's been,
Right.
It
I mean,
actually, it
the
seems
same
like it
theory.
should be in the DB district.
Yeah,
currently.
but it wasn't. It somehow was a historical quirk that it was in RB. So, and you know,
So
why?
Tom, you got a map that shows what you're proposing and where the district is,
Yeah,
right? I
I
haven't
know.
seen it.
And I'm telling you that F53222 was included in the overlay district article that passed, whatever it was, 6 years ago. So, the same theory went for the yacht club, but the yacht club's, off by itself. It's not connected to the rest of the district.
Again, you have a proposed map that shows what's in your new district.
Yeah, hold on a sec. Let me stop this share.
That will definitely be important, I think, for the planning board.
Oh, yeah, no, and they already have all this and will have all of this, so. Yeah, so there it is, right there. The Legion, where that cursor is, that's the
Oh, could you
Legion.
share it? I don't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I not do the screen share? Sorry. Can you see it now? Yeah, there we go. So right there in the,
Yeah, it's like that little sliver.
yeah, that little sliver there is crosshatched in the overlay district.
Yeah.
And it'll just, again, it's for the
This is-
benefit of, it's for the benefit of Legion to be
So
non,
is this what you're using for the planning board?
Yeah.
And town meeting?
unless and until somebody can do some slick graphics for me. We can
Well-
work on, we can
Well,
work
we
on
would,
it.
I mean, I think typically we would, who did this? Was it Amory Engineers or was somebody else? Actually, I think the most
Clark?
recent update was done by Jason Federico.
Yeah, well, Jason Federico isn't around, is he?
I know that, Tom.
So, if we can get access to a file that he left behind and have a nice color version of it, great, but we don't have, as far as I know, we don't have the budget to go to Amory and say, please do these up in color. Again, if we can do color slides, great, but, I'm not super concerned about that this isn't visible in the same way. Anyway, so I don't think, in the end of the day, I don't think that is super critical. The critical issue that was brought up at the select board meeting, and let me go back to screen share for the text. All right, so what I also did in reorganizing these, so housing choice, well, there's the village one. The MBTA, actually, I need to change the name of this. It's MBTA. Cassandra, will you make that change on the version that I gave you? So prints out that way.
Sure.
By the way, I did circulate, I hope everybody saw them. So the state came back with their comments. They didn't have any real substantive comments on the text. They just said we had to add something about changing the map, which I added as no, down here, yeah. Step E and in the description down below on item 6, amending the zoning map. That's all they said. They said that the formula and the compliance is being looked at by a different agency, and I imagine we're not going to hear about that until the thing goes through town meeting. Maybe we will before town meeting, maybe we won't. But, you know, UTO had told us that, this was in compliance. They ran all their numbers, so. UTL is going to be, Cassandra has invited them to be at the planning board hearing when we get to this article, so they can answer any technical questions about it.
Same deal. Is there a map that's colors, or are you that's clear? That's going to be
Yeah,
at the planning board?
the map that UTL did of the district is part of the
Okay.
things we're going to have. So then
Yeah.
I moved the parking up ahead of the Article 5 stuff. That should be low hanging fruit, I would, relatively speaking, but. So on the the border zoning, if you saw my comments, what the judge said to us here was, rather than create a new columns in the table, to just add this as a new note in section 5.4, we have a number of supplements to the table, notes essentially. And so she said it was easier, she suggested it was easier to do it as a note rather than adding things to the table. And that's fine. It substantively makes no difference either way, but that was the judge's only tweak on that I got on Monday. On the floor area ratio, I adjusted RB from 0.11 to 0.12, and that's because of the math. I was using 36,000 square feet as the denominator, and it's actually 35.
Did you get the average lot size? Or because remember, 70% of our lots are
I know that,
non-conforming.
but this is
Is this
looking for,
based on average, or
this
is it
is,
based on
this
what the
is,
zoning requirement is?
this is average lot size over minimum lot size required, and for new construction, you're going to have to comply with minimum lot size. This is really
Yeah,
deep.
that's true, but it's going to apply to existing houses as well.
Yes, which are non-conforming to begin with. And so they're non-conforming because they are under the lot size. So it's going to apply in the same proportion as it was to to the minimum required lot. I don't think that data helps us, and I don't think the data, but here's what I'm suggesting is that the select board had no comment on the numbers or no suggested changes to the numbers. What the select board was the next part that's highlighted. Let's go through the planning board process and public comment and see what happens. Do we tweak these numbers? Maybe. But right now, these are based on the average lot size, average house size in each district divided by their minimum lot size requirement. And I was incorrectly using 36 for RB when it's 35, so it changed it from 0.11 to 0.12. So here, the highlighted part, you should know we're suggesting putting in a possibility to go over the allowed FAR by a small amount through a special permit process. The select board suggested we take this out. And I would say they were unanimous in it. They didn't take a formal vote, but a number of them spoke up about it, including, I wish Jack was here to be able to.
Tom, excuse me. You told the select board, I happened to be listening, that we had voted on this FAR as a
Yes, we
committee,
did.
which we haven't.
We did.
Can you explain that?
My notes reflect that we did. If not, we'll vote tonight, Clark. We're just recommending that this go forward. But the
My
question,
recollection from last week's meeting is that we only voted to send the parking to KP Law for review, and that FAR, we were going to find out what the average existing lot sizes are in the A, B, and C district.
yeah, all right. Well, we're gonna vote on
You
it
could go
now.
through the Zoom meeting.
Then Clark, if I made that representation in error, I made
You
that
did.
representation in error. So we're here to vote on it, not recommend it now, or we can say we're not, I don't, we're just an advisory committee, so we let the planning board decide that. But the question right now that I have before you is the selectmen's request or suggestion that this part in yellow be taken out. They think, if I can explain their, you know, if you heard the meeting too, their rationale was if it's a limit, it's a limit. That should be the limit. And to which I believe I discussed with them, that might lead to a tweaking of these numbers up here, but you know, we can, again, I want to run that. We see what feedback we get from the planning board on it, but that's the issue they put before us.
There are ways to think about average, mean, and median. They're slightly nuanced.
I know, so you brought that up at the last time and we went from median to average, which was a higher number. So I
guess the question.
Mike and David, you know, again, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what the select board is requesting that we do.
Well,
Uh,
it's my understanding. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. How many of the select board members used to be on the planning board?
3 of them. And that
3?
was and by the way, that was pointed out last week.
Oh, that's what. Yes, yeah, because Gene was there a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
That was back in like 08, 09, I think.
yeah, but at least 2 recent members. I mean, but I guess the thing is I mean, I've always been for having some flexibility for what do you call it, the the planning board or any adjudicatory board, and especially with something new, because you just don't know about that special case, that could cause indigestion in going through the bylaws. So I thought it was good to have it there to begin with, because it at least allowed some release on it for a particular special instance. And also it still has to go through that standard of getting a special permit,
Yes.
which has standards which are pretty decent. So
And the select board's answer to that was if you give people that wiggle room, they'll take that wiggle room on each and every occasion.
True enough, but it's still, but with a special permit in the planning board, it can't be to substantial detriment to the neighborhood, which is an important clause for the special permit. So it's
that's the zoning board's
zoning board
determination, typically under special permit or variance. That's their criteria.
Yeah, but in this particular case, we're saying that exceeding the floor area ratio would be the planning board. The zoning board deals with the variance.
Okay,
the planning board would deal with the special permit. So here's
typically, the zoning board of appeals deals with everything that's either a special permit or a variance from the table of area regulations and so forth.
But with a special permit, the planning board can also put conditions on the project.
Yeah, so can the zoning board.
I guess, zoning board too.
But if we take the language saying, okay, the special permit part's going to the planning board, variance is going to zoning board. So variance just put on the side. Special permit wise, for everyone who's watching their edification, could you explain what the special permit what you can do with that?
The standard would be, the standard of a special permit is that it's not supposed to be more substantially detrimental to the neighborhood.
Yes, yeah.
So again, with the whole concept of FAR to begin with, you're looking at its proportionality and its relationship to the lot and its relationship to the neighborhood. And then to get a special permit, again, you're looking at it in the context of the neighborhood. And if it went to 110% of FAR and it wasn't out of scope with the neighborhood, then you'd be in a position to grant it. If that extra 10% in excess of FAR was, on a given lot was excessive, then you're in that, you're in the position of saying no.
Yeah.
And then, and again,
that's-
we're talking about new construction here where, you know, where, because the
No,
house,
it's existing as well.
I know that, but
Just
what
new.
the house that wants to expand on an undersized lot is gonna go through the Article 8 process, not the planning board process.
Well,
So, I mean, as
Well,
far as
you know,
planning,
I
as far as
think-
planning
I
board
think
was
it's like a
designed,
section 6. I think it's like a section 6 mass general law finding. Actually, like I did just for grins. I know that Jack's not here, but everybody knows his house is pretty big for his lot, right? It's 7,000 square foot lot and it's a 2,600 square foot house. So, you know, I just typed in the address and he's got a 0.32 lot FAR on
Yeah.
his residence B lot, 0.32.
Yep.
So
So he's
if he wanted to
he's not
build
conforming to begin with.
if he wanted to build an addition, he already exceeds the FAR.
Right.
So
And he
my
already,
understanding based on the FAR case Belalta versus Brookline is that if he wanted to put a dormer on his in his attic and increase his FAR from 0.32 to 0.35, he could do that with a special permit.
yeah, because under the non-conforming standard, under Article 8, it's not only a special permit, but it also has to be found to increase the non-conformity. And a dormer on the top versus, you know, a new
New
room,
foundation.
a new room and foundation off the side are two different animals. I mean, Jack's property is,
No, it's an increase in FAR. We're talking about FAR. It
well,
would be an
Jack's is,
increase in FAR. We're not talking
Jack's,
about front side or rear setback or lot coverage. We're talking about FAR only. And I'm just using it as an example. I think he would just ask for a special permit if he wanted to put a dormer, using Brookline as an example, and whoever would be representing him presumably would pull that case law out.
yeah, he would be doing that under Article 8 with the zoning board.
But also section 6 of the Mass General Law.
Yeah, but still with the zoning. 'Cause
Yes,
it's
it
not,
would be a zoning board of appeals.
he's non-conforming now, and he's non-conforming.
And he's increasing the nonconformity. But
Right,
for
so
example, if let's just say the numbers were a little different. Let's continue to use Jack because he's not here. But let's say his lot, his FAR was 0.11. I mean, it's a little bit of fiction, but now the limit is 0.12. So in that case, he wouldn't be able to increase his FAR by 0.03. He would not be able to increase it over 0.12 without a variance
No,
because he's conforming it in that amended example, not real life example, because he conforms to the 0.12.
Yeah, I may not be following you, but as I understand it, you look to, the ZBA can approve by special permit an increase in an existing nonconformity. But if you're looking to create a
Non-conformity.
nonconformity that doesn't, you need to get a variance.
That's right.
And
That's
and
exactly
we don't,
right.
and the ZBA really doesn't grant variances.
Right.
We allow increases in existing nonconformities on a pretty regular basis, but.
Yes. Yes. So using the
My bylaw.
example, if his RB lot had a FAR of 0.11 and he wanted to increase it to 0.13, he would not be able to do that by special permit. But then using the real world example, his FAR is 0.32 and the requirement is 0.12, so he would be able to increase it by a special permit. And in his lot, he could he say, I have a hardship and I need a variance? I suppose he could try that, but
No,
It's just using a real world example of how
Yeah,
this,
hold on, I'm just.
how this works. It would be interesting to know how many lots would be conforming and how many would be
Well,
non-conforming.
Hold on,
Because the assessor's records have lot size and they have house size.
Hold on,
Now,
let me
now,
just,
interestingly enough, their version, their calculation of house size is different than the bylaws definition of house size or residential gross floor area, or I think in your case, you're using gross floor area.
I just want to look at something real quick. Because I started, if you saw, I was starting to write some things to make
Because
it
that
better.
2,500 square feet that he has might not actually include the basement. I don't know how the assessor figures out square footage.
Well, they also look
Right.
at, they also, you know, there's a lot of things the assessors do, you know, for the, for taxation purposes of livable area versus the non-livable area.
Finished
All right.
basement
Yeah,
would
finished
probably get
basement.
thrown in. If it's
Yeah,
unfinished basement,
yeah.
then forget about it.
Yeah, there's this all to monetize, I guess, the house regarding taxation more
Yeah,
than
they
anything
want to
else.
ding them. They want to
Yeah,
ding you in a
yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
fair way, sort of.
yeah. So it's but nevertheless, I mean, you know, it's a good thing to look at, or at least, I mean, where else are you going to go to get some numbers there? You have to.
Well, I mean,
Hold on.
I've said that I have a problem with this new restriction for
Stop calling it a restriction.
existing homeowners. I don't have the problem with new construction
Well, that's why I made,
applications, but unfortunately, both are ensnared in this version. If there was a different standard for existing homes than
that's
for
what I'm
new
typing,
homes,
that's what I'm typing right now.
well, existing or existing non-conforming might get you where I'm thinking, but you know,
Well, if it's conforming, they should conform. I don't, but hold on one sec. Let me just think and finish this. Proposal for existing non-conforming. Wait a minute, what's the word I'm looking
well,
for?
writing zoning bylaws on the fly
Well,
usually is
you know
not a
what?
good idea.
Well,
have,
I think
you know
he's
what,
looking.
Clark, but I have a brain for this, so just let me do it without
No,
you
I think it's
interrupting.
okay if he's looking to amend it in some way, but
So
you know,
first of
Well,
all,
you could present
first,
that to the planning board at our public hearing.
first of all, here's the yellow part is I've altered to say it's for new construction, and I put the special permit. Since the zoning board will be dealing with special permits under the non-conforming, it's fine that they deal with them here too.
yeah.
The new construction, all right,
I think it's a good example, Clark, but I think with this it still has a ways to go. It's gonna go in front of the planning board. You're gonna have the zoning board
yeah,
looking
and you're
through
still gonna
the,
have this, and you're gonna have the select board at the moment opposing this because they feel that the limit should be the limit, and they may say, well, take the new construction part out, and, you know, not, just this line that I'm typing now would be the only one that they'd want to see, so, you know, we'll see what feedback we get when we circulate it, but let me just finish it for a second. Go ahead and talk, but let me just,
but I was saying, I think that's how you get, you know, a better bylaw proposals. It goes through all those means. It's looked at through different ways, and you try to bring up examples. And again, the zoning board could have because they deal with the nonconformities all the time on expansions of them. You know, they might have a totally different look on this of what would be needed. And they might have different language or amending it or who knows what. So I think that's all part of the process.
not so much writing it, it's the typing.
But would
All
Clark,
right, so
Clark, in your example, I had a question. Clark, in your example, I mean, how many? I know you can't look through all of them, but how many houses do you think are already conforming to these numbers or around that area? I mean, wouldn't most be above that?
we don't really know. I mean, I would
Yeah.
expect that residence A and residence B would probably
Yeah.
have more non-conforming to this new proposed regulation than residence C, but
Yeah.
you know,
No,
those
but the use of
residential
the
zones
average,
have morphed, just not recently.
Yeah.
the use of the average.
And I don't know which, if you break down the existing non-conforming lot size by residence A, B, and C, I don't know what that breakdown is. My intuition is that A and B are more non-conforming than residence C.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by use of the average, we're not going to create that many new nonconformities. I mean, because the average exists for a reason. Anyway, and that's why our RA's FAR is much higher, because of the average being, their average is probably that they are non-conforming to the 18,000 square foot limit.
I would
All
imagine.
right, so here's what I wrote here and again, the select board again so first of all, changing this second yellow paragraph, distinguish between new construction and existing expansion of existing non-conforming structure. All right, so both of them, for the new construction, giving the 110% leeway by special permit to the zoning board, and then anything that exceeds that will require variance, and that's the zoning board. And then if expansion of an existing non-conforming structure that would exceed maximum floor area will be subject to 308.4. And I just had to look up how we move things around with Article 8. 8.4 is the provision. Clark, if you have an old printed bylaw.
I don't have an updated bylaw.
No, but the old one, it was 8.7.
8.7.
Now it's 8.4. So
Mike?
this is the provision that says if you want to expand subject to a special permit process with the zoning board. So
You
we're giving,
you might
we're
mean
giving them
instead
the
of a
leeway.
proposal for expansion of existing non-conforming structure that would exceed the floor area ratio, you might, an existing, non-conforming floor area ratio. I mean, structure with
That's what I was wondering.
All right, okay, all right, wait a minute. And
it,
let's
it
just
could
go-
be non-conforming in, a dozen different ways, right?
Yeah, and they likely are in a dozen different ways. A proposal for expansion of a structure.
A structure
Hold
with
on,
a
hold on.
non-conforming FAR.
Yeah, hold on, let me just, I don't want to. Hold on, I don't want to have to retype anything, so. Proposal for expansion of an existing structure.
I will say, about the harbor, the hand-drawn plan, and without having
It's not
the
hand drawn,
existing bylaw,
it's the copy of the map.
language and proposed bylaw language, what those changes really are. I don't think as a committee, we've gone through them in what I think would be sufficient detail to make a recommendation. I guess we'll just have to pick it up on the fly with the planning board's review.
It is not on the fly, Clark. It is simply looking at the map of what the map will look like before and what the map will look like after.
Yes,
And
but
the
there's
map,
also individual
map
uses that are
is
allowed
not-
in each of those districts.
which
that-
has been gone through by the judge and I. And there were three.
Okay, well, we didn't go through it, so we're not going to vote on it, right? It doesn't matter.
It just,
When you're talking about the map, are you talking about regarding the Legion, or are you talking about changing the
Well, I was
different,
I
the
was talking about the whole
consolidation,
harbor zoning,
the harbor
all the
zone?
districts that Tom proposed to consolidate. We haven't really done a thorough review on what you can do now,
It's
what
to
you could do with your changes, and other than your hand-drawn, map, what it would apply to.
Well, I don't think it's hand drawn. I think it is the map. I mean,
It is the map.
we know where, like, we know where the Legion property is and how that's different. We know where the overlay is, and we know where the harbor things are. I think, you know, it is a good question. The major, I wouldn't call it major, for instance, the change, because we're getting rid of the light industry, which was there, and you're making it a harbor usage, which makes it, you know, is maybe more sensible. I think that's the one that you would want to look at what uses harbor wise is it going to allow that it doesn't allow now.
Well, Tom's proposing mixed use for something like that the Trendowitz Marina.
No, no, I'm not.
We're
We've
not
specifically
we're not
decided
extending.
not to expand mixed use, which is why the overlay is going and everything is turning into waterfront business. Essentially, everything is going to become waterfront business. The uses between downtown business and waterfront
Okay,
business
so
are
you're
not different.
eliminating the mixed use from the harbor business overlay district, or you're eliminating the harbor district overlay district as a part of this
Yes.
and
Hold on.
replacing it with.
You're distracting me. You
Waterfront.
know, Clark, I know you're
I
distracting
thought it
me
was
for-
HIR, not waterfront.
Clark, you're being obstructionist for the sake of being obstructionist.
I'm really just trying to get a handle on this because
Well, I've explained it a zillion times. So here,
I understand
consolidate,
that, Tom. I'm
consolidate
not
all
trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to
No,
look at
figure out what's going to
read
happen
it.
with the,
It's
no,
in-
with
no,
the
hold on,
planning board
please,
discussion.
Tom, if you could just read the language and then maybe it might
It's right
clarify.
here, right here that's in front of you right now. Everything that is currently waterfront business, downtown business, and light industry in the harbor area to a single harbor district, period. The table is going to adopt all the uses and dimensions of the waterfront business district. The downtown business district uses and the waterfront district uses don't vary much, other than the fact that the downtown business one doesn't touch the water. So it doesn't have a lot of water related uses in it. And the light industry, God knows why that was done. But
Okay,
we don't want light industry at the end
so
of
you're
Park
you're
Avenue.
just getting rid of the overlay district as a part of this.
And then C and B, repeal zoning article, bylaw article 22. And C, include the Legion. It's very simple, and the map just shows that
Yeah,
none of the boundaries are changing. It's a renaming.
I did just have a question regarding if we get rid of the overlay. So on the Kimball's property, which is, you know, now been redone, if you have under this, if the overlay goes away from the mixed use, that then becomes a pre-existing non-conforming, does it not?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's answering
So-
the cry of the citizenry who are disgusted with that project.
Yes, but I'm just asking this one question. So if they say have businesses in there and then the businesses go defunct, new business comes in and then wants to do whatever, they would a new business be okay being able to do that because the property was therefore pre-existing non-conforming when it was built, or to make sure there's no abandonment issues?
It's still subject to the permit under which it was built.
Under which it was built, okay.
So, based on the table of uses for waterfront business, that would be the table of uses for your new harbor district, and it doesn't include the yacht club. Is that right?
Correct.
So they would be
leave
just
the
the
yacht-
same. You'd
leave
be
the yacht
swapping
club.
out all the existing uses that are waterfront business with this HAR.
And the dimensions as well.
I mean, again, I might be the only one, which is fine, but I would, without confusing people, I would say that even though the yacht club is pre-existing, that it should be a part of a harbor district so that can become conforming instead of non-conforming. But
I know, and in the original draft of this, it was, but
Yeah.
you know, in the discussions of this group, we can't seem to focus on making those decisions, so leave the yacht club by itself
I-
for now.
Not
I-
sure,
I-
I'm not sure what you mean, but the lot coverage, for example, in the table is 80% for that.
Yes. Yes,
So where are we increasing or decreasing the lot coverage from some of the other districts? Like, for example, I got the table out. Light industry is 60% coverage.
yeah,
So we're increasing the allowed lot coverage to 80%.
correct. Unless you want to rezone the end of Parker Ave as open space. I didn't create the damn commercial zoning down at the end
Oh,
of
I didn't
Parker.
know that was an option. Can we do that to private property?
Probably not over a strong objection. Look, the,
Oh, you just meant that
all-
as a
all-
zoning joke. You're just making a,
no, I know, there would be,
zone-
the property owner would no doubt object to that because it would constrain him in the continued use of his marina probably. The
Right.
reason that zoning existed down there was because of the Haggerty property and because it was a factory. It's not
yeah,
a
the
factory
Cohasset
anymore.
Colonials.
Yeah, it's not a factory anymore. It's not an ideal location for light industry or a factory use. It is a marina and it's a parking lot. It is a boat ramp. And it
Yeah.
is now an educational location. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what you,
I mean,
I don't think the town wants anything else down there. Light industry was, again, it was just
it was
way-
an ano-
it was
it
a
was an
way to, it was a way to make the Haggerty operation a conforming use. But it doesn't exist anymore and it's not coming back. And I don't want to encourage it by having light industry down. Not the place for it. Where's my table? Look at the table of the DB coverage. I don't think
What's
it's
that?
that much different.
What'd you say?
Look at the table. Hold on, let me see it. I have it right here. Where is it? The DB lot coverage is 80% as well. Really, what the properties we're impacting that are remaining as DB down there. I mean, the hotel project's landside building is DB, but it's in the overlay. Is the little gray building there that's got, what, two tenants in it? Some new one just opened up? That's what's left of DB in the harbor. And that could have had 80% lot coverage before, and it'll have 80% lot coverage here.
yeah, I mean, I think at some point in time, to have the buildings in the areas around the harbor to be of a harbor waterfront usage makes perfect sense. And, I think it's the time to probably do it. A lot of things have already been constructed there at this time. So I don't,
Yeah, and as
I,
far as
I-
as far as the 3A uses, you pointed out the medical marijuana and the judge pointed out the wind and solar facilities that were special permit uses in the technology business district. And so I just changed the column.
So,
There were
Tom,
special,
just going back to the harbor, the actual Maritime Institute property where the town ramp and the uh boat trailer parking, that is open space district and town owned. So that would not be changing.
it may be now.
It is now open space and town
All right,
owned.
well, then
And
no,
then there's
it's not changing, then it's just the
next to
marina.
that, to the west of that is Residence C, but I think that's all swampy land.
The, Yeah,
in between. I mean,
the
Residence C is Government Island. That's the Harbor Master's Office Sail Club.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't be changing because it's Residence C, because we're not changing any Residence C districts
That's
or
No, but
Residence B to be a part of this.
frankly, we
The
should.
only one is the Legion lot. That is, everything else is
Yeah.
covered.
Yeah.
Because we didn't identify the government island properties. We probably should have, but be that as it may.
Well,
They're
they're identified as Residence C and town owned.
Yeah,
on
they're
the
not
current zoning map.
changing, yeah, they're not changing their uses. So anyway, I gotta ask the judge a question that I just want to highlight it for myself. All right, so getting back to this. All right. So this is how I think you are suggesting this be changed. I think that the happy compromise between what the select board wants and what we would like to see for flexibility is to take out anything about new construction, that new construction will have the hard limit. That's what they want. They say the limit is the limit, and it should be variance above that. And that would take out these first two sentences.
I don't know if this is the right language. I guess in terms of the FAR and just shooting from the hip using underlying zoning with current house size. I mean, I could see adding 20% to the numbers that you have for FAR.
Why, Clark? Why do you want larger houses in the town of Cohasset when
You don't have to yell, Tom, or call me names, by the way.
I'm not calling you a name, Clark. Your name is Clark.
You did it at the last meeting.
He
So
bought his
here's the deal. I'm
Powerball
making
ticket
a
tonight. He's ready to.
suggestion, but the reality is, obviously, I don't like this FAR, and it doesn't really matter what you wordsmith. So if you want to just get a vote from this board, you just ask for one now. If it really doesn't matter, you probably know, unless it changes significantly with the planning board, how I would vote on the planning board. But maybe Jack would say, "Hey, Clark, you're conflicted because you already discussed this as a part of the zoning bylaw committee."
We're not conflicted.
I have no idea.
We're not.
But maybe we're wasting
Clark, you and I
time
are not
because I can't even bring something up without you going off on me.
Because I disagree that the position that you propose. You're here on this. I enjoy having your position there because a contrary position should be there, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with it or indulge it forever.
It's over, man. We don't have to talk about it anymore. I mean, you know my position. If you added 20%, maybe I'd be on board. Maybe not. I don't know. I'd prefer that I knew what the average lot size was and compared to
That doesn't
house size,
matter, Clark. The average lot
but
size,
because
if
I
it's a
think it's
non,
different for existing homes and new construction.
which is what now the distinction in the paragraph is trying to deal with, that it will allow a special permit under the Article 8 process. We can't, if we tailor the average lot size, the average house size to the average lot size, we're gonna get a much larger FAR than we're targeting.
Yes, I know, because you're restricting
You're
the
not
ability for people to
restricting, I'm
expand, and you're giving lots of people new existing new non-conforming status without really understanding it by the numbers.
But in almost any example you'll give with an existing house that's undersized is already non-conforming. So
Okay,
we're not adding anybody's burden.
I asked this question several times in previous meetings. Have you found any towns similar to ours that have used FAR successfully? And if so, what were their ratios?
No, Clark, I haven't done that research. I don't have the time to research 351 cities and towns. My understanding from speaking to the engineers and
All towns in Cohasset aren't similar to ours.
yeah, I know that. And as I said before, I have zero problem, neither does the select board, by the way, of being one of the first smaller towns to do this.
Okay,
There
well, I guess I would say then on this one, the horse is out of the barn. It really doesn't matter what this board does. It's already printed up, it's publicly advertised. We don't have to vote on this.
I think we should be making a recommendation as we are the promoters of the article.
If that's what you want to do.
I mean, the whole thing is, Clark, I understand how you don't like FAR, which is fine, but when in going through this, one of the things that was brought to us that way back when, and I know it's a long time because we've talked a lot about stuff, was when the select board had talked about, that was one of the things that they were looking for was an FAR as well.
Well, it was FAR to replace the large home review.
Yeah,
No, it's not.
no,
It's
not
not.
to replace it.
It's not replacing it. What it's replacing is the risk that is presented by 20% lot coverage in a two-dimensional measurement, a footprint only measurement.
But I think it is a good question as to, you know, when you come up with the ratios, can you explain them? Where'd you come up with them? And you know, what is the true effect of this? And I think this other language would certainly help when you're talking about new construction versus current construction, and see if it goes. But it's still, all of it has to still go to the planning board, zoning board, and see what they say, because they could have other examples, other things that might work or might not work.
Well, the zoning board, remember, is not the same as the planning board and what their review is.
I understand that, but they might but because of the perspective they have, they might see it that things might work or might not work on different levels. So
Well, yeah,
I mean,
I
that's
don't mean to
the
interrupt you.
process.
Let you
Yeah.
finish. So I mean, the problem I have with FAR is it's a new regulation that takes away existing property rights, and it limits the value of existing homes to expand. I read an article recently that multi-generational homes are growing significantly. And having the flexibility to get your mom and dad on the first floor would necessarily mean you have to add a bedroom on the first floor. Maybe 50% of the houses in Cohasset could accommodate a bedroom on the first floor or an expansion of a bedroom on the first floor. But then there's another 50% that could not without a variance. And all this does is it makes that flexibility just much less. And I can't really quantify exactly what the impact is. I use Jack's house as an example with a floor area ratio and how he already exceeds it as a nonconformity, so he could expand it as a special permit, not a variance.
Which is what the language now says, that we did not have here when we started this a half hour ago.
But I just don't like it because it adds an additional limitation to existing houses, which are already have enormous limits to them.
The
And
limitations.
as a person that applies these bylaws to actual real world problems, all I see is difficulty for individual homeowners who won't be able to get their houses to work as they change over the years as easily as they do now without the FAR.
And Clark, these houses are non-conforming to begin with. And there comes a point when a town says that zoning is going to have these limits that, you know, maybe you just don't get to do. You don't have an unfettered right. You keep saying property rights. You do not have
Yes,
an
people
unfettered
have
right to.
people do.
They
have
do not
certain
have the
property
right
rights.
to do whatever they want. Okay,
Well,
that is not the
that's
law.
zoning bylaws. The current zoning bylaws aren't unfettered rights so that people can do whatever they want. This is a new additional restriction.
It is not a restriction.
It
It is
is.
memorializing our development
It's a
patterns to
restriction, and
date.
you're taking lot coverage down to 25% from 30%. You are restricting and limiting property rights from what they are now. If you don't want to admit it, then
I am
that's
memorial.
a different
We are
story.
memorializing our
I
current
think through
development patterns.
through the diagnostic that has been done before by KP law and from everything that's been looked at with our bylaw previously is an outlier to other communities. And the whole reason that there's the zoning bylaw committee to look this over and go through all the articles is to try and bring the Cohasset bylaw into the 21st century, so that not necessarily to restrict things, but to bring it into the 21st century and clean it up, because it was a total hodgepodge in a house that Jack built. It was one article after the other attached to it, and it
I
conflicts. It
understand
doesn't
about
make sense.
organizing
Yeah.
and mainstreaming certain things, but this FAR is not a mainstream feature.
I mean, a mainstream.
I mean, if you could point into the diagnostic that KP Law did and say, hey, Clark, on page 72, they recommend the use of FAR for our town to normalize overall construction size relative to the zoning districts. That would be something, but it's not there.
We
It's
know
not there because that wasn't in the scope of their work as they
Yes.
understood the scope
But-
of their work. The
but we know
substantive
from
yes.
whether we agree with it or not, and it's debatable. We know from the previous master planning groups that have been done to at least gather the information regarding the development that has gone on with town for the last 20 years. We know where we stand with that. So, I mean, that work has been done. Now, I agree, we could disagree about floor area ratio, which you do, which is fine. And we can disagree about, even if we like floor area ratio, about the numbers that are there and how we want to calculate it.
Right.
That's certainly up for debate. But to say our bylaw isn't accommodating enough for development, I don't think that's the case.
That's not what I
think-
said. That's not what I said. I said it's an additional restriction that mostly I'm concerned about existing homes and the effect that this will have on people's ability to create an in-law apartment necessarily, or have a multi-generational home, or whatever flexibility they want, whether they just wanted to build a family room or add a bathroom.
Well, I share your concern with current homeowners and existing houses of what they can do, but we also have to look at, what within the box of, what if you're creating a bylaw that's going to cover the whole town in different zoning districts, you have to look at also what's going to make sense. So I guess we'll see, but I think it should at least go through the process and have the planning board run it through the wash and the ringer and see if it makes sense, and have the zoning board run it through the ringer and see if it makes sense. And if it does, then so be it. Or if it needs to be amended or changed, that's fine
Yeah.
too.
I was gonna say, is it fair to assume that if we put something on the board and it proves in practice to be unworkable or unwieldy, future members of this or some other similar committee could revisit and,
Of course.
present changes?
Of course.
I mean, to me, let's just get something on the board. Clark, you may have very valid concerns. I'm certainly not trying to discount them, but seems to me that the goal here is to try and get something on the board, and if it needs to be tweaked down the road, then there's a process by which to tweak it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go
go ahead, David.
Yeah, I definitely want it poked, prodded, and and see if it can stand up to the scrutiny based upon, is it going to live or die on its own legs here? And that's what I want to see is from the other boards as well. And I think that's the attempt that you make. And if it goes through the process and it looks like it's a strong provision that makes sense for the town, then it can move onward. If it doesn't stand up to that scrutiny, then it won't. But I think at least it should go through that process.
Hey, Tom, just
If you-
on some kind of drafting suggestions. In the
Yeah.
second paragraph where you have a proposal for new construction to exceed that limit, I think it should be a proposal for new construction to exceed the 110% limit shall require a variance.
Yep. So this is what, as a follow-up to tonight, I'm going to send an email out highlighting this discussion and these 3 paragraphs. And we will go to the planning board with this, and we'll see what they say. I hope select board members show up Wednesday to express their point of view. My guess is, you know, again, we didn't make this distinction between new construction and pre-existing, but the select board would want this out. And for new construction, there's a limit, period. But to this, for the existing home that's non-conforming, we are at least building in the flexibility that there's a special permit process if your non-conformity is maximum floor area ratio.
And on
But,
that third,
you know, the end result, though, is at some point, everybody, even under today's zoning, has to face the fact that you may not be able to build as big a house as you want on the lot you live at. And
Hey, Tom, just so you know,
let Mike finish.
I
I'm
could
sorry.
build, since I'm in residence A and I have a 32,000 square foot lot,
Yeah.
I would be able to build a house that's 7,000 square feet. And I have 1,700 square feet now. In case you
Yeah.
think this is personal, it isn't.
Tom, I would just say in the third paragraph, the second paragraph, you say may be entertained by special permit to the zoning board of appeals. I think you should dupe that language, and
Yeah,
so
that's,
maximum
I
floor
agree.
area may be entertained by special permit to the zoning. So just dupe that language in the third paragraph at the end of the third paragraph.
Thank you.
That would be my suggestion.
No, thank you, Michael.
And we're allowed to wordsmith anything that's a part of the public hearing at the planning board meeting.
Say what?
But
Say
we're
that-
allowed to wordsmith any aspect of the language in the proposed zoning article as a part of the planning board. Perfect it, if you will.
If you want to, if you,
It doesn't just hit the planning board for a public hearing and that there's nothing we could do. Mike
No,
used to
Clark,
do a good job at wordsmithing
in the
on the
past,
fly as a part of our planning board meetings.
you know,
I mean, you want it to be as good as you can get it.
yeah, I know, Clark, I do. And in the past, you have taken positions at the planning board hearing that you hadn't expressed at these meetings, so I fully expect that.
Really?
Yes, you
Like what?
have. And we've done it in both times, both town meetings.
I would expect his position to be pretty consistent in this
Yeah,
matter.
remarkably consistent. In fact, if you just weren't listening,
It's-
Tom, that's not my problem. I didn't like the height issue, and I certainly didn't like the war on private ways. And I think I was remarkably consistent about that. But the fact is, if you don't listen,
I do listen, Clark, to everything you say. All right, so I want to have a vote.
Yeah, Tom, I don't want to be persnickety here. I would
No.
just dupe the language. May be entertained by special permit to the zoning board of appeals. So a proposal for expansion of an existing structure that is non-conforming with respect to maximum floor area issue may be entertained by special permit to the zoning board of appeals.
the entertained word is not zoning language. Judge Cutler would be all over you for that.
Well, then we got to have it the same. But I just
It
like,
could be
hey, you
considered,
say,
maybe, considered.
It's a word that I use in between, well, whatever. The judge is gonna see this. tomorrow, so chime in if he wishes.
Or maybe it's approved by special permit to the zoning of the zoning board of appeals.
Oh, it should,
I would keep a word in there, whatever it is, and I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over because KP Law will certainly clean that part up to what the legal language should be, so it can be administered.
actually, the word is allowed, so.
Yeah. Then there you go. Just stick with that, and
That's what, and it's as long as it's qualified by May, so that's the word, so.
Yeah,
Is
that's
is
much
there
better.
is there anything else on that we have to entertain tonight as well regarding this?
No, no, everything else is fine. Um. So just so you know, for Wednesday, um, I will call the meeting to order. It's a rather long public notice that has to be read. If Amy is live, I am going to have her, conduct the meeting as to who to call on. If she's not live, I'll either do it myself or defer to, either have it Kevin or Deirdre do it, but because I'll be doing the presenting, but I would almost treat it like a forum that, I can certainly present and recognize people for questions and answers, but I don't, in a perfect world,
You definitely don't want me to run that meeting, Tom.
Hmm?
I said, you definitely don't want me to run that meeting.
No, I don't. So I'm not worried about the format. We have no idea how many people we're gonna get or not get. There will be, hopefully online at least, a publicity piece about it on the anchor, but, I did tell them it was 6:30 rather than 7, but if people show up early, so be it. The
Okay,
reason-
Tom, it's
the-
7:36. You have me till 8 o'clock and then I'm signing off.
No, this is it. So let's take a vote. I'm gonna make a motion that the bylaw committee uh, recommend that ZBC 8 in the form that is now written be submitted for the hearing with the planning board.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Michael. All in favor?
Clark Brewer, nay.
Tom Kelly and I.
Michael Dickey, aye.
David Frog, aye.
All right. I'll circulate and try to get people's input before Wednesday, town council, for sure. And, I think it's just to let the select board know what our position is at the moment here. But, I don't have a strong feeling about the second paragraph in new construction. I think putting in the specific reference to the non-conforming bylaw is a good thing to do, so that I think was something constructive tonight. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second, all in favor?
Clark Brewer,
Aye.
aye.
Tom Kelly and I heard Mike say aye.
Yeah.
David Frog, aye. Yeah.
All right,
Good, everyone.
see you on Wednesday. Thank you.
all right,
Mike,
thank you,
yeah,
gentlemen.
Mike, touch base with Woody and see what you guys have for time.
Yeah, well, it's generally the first Tuesday of every month.
Yeah, I would suggest that you maybe schedule a meeting outside of that schedule to be able
All
to.
right, I'll check with Woody then.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye now.